My name is Ben Rasmussen. I'm the Director of Law and Professional Practices at the Utah State Board of Education. I'm over the State Council on Military Children. And so as part of that function, I coordinate our Purple Star Schools program. And so what we want to do today is take an opportunity to kind of just go through the program requirements for those of you that are looking at applying to be Purple Star Schools or to renew your Purple Star School status this year. We will just kind of go through the requirements. I've got a few links here that are helpful for you as you are going through the application process. The first is our Purple Star Schools webpage for the Utah State Board of Education. This has our application links and all the different information about schools that have Purple Star School status, some other helpful tools. That's where this recording will be posted if you want to access it later. If someone, one of your schools wants to access it later, is this Purple Star Schools link. The next two links are our application links. We've done the application a little bit different this year. We're doing it through Qualtrics. This link will take you through to Qualtrics, and you can go through and just fill that out, answer the questions. There was some concern originally that people would submit an application if they wanted to make change, that they would have to redo that. I figured out that I can actually send you a link to edit your application. So if you've sent in an application before and you want to make a change, that is something that you can do. Just let me know, shoot me an email, and I can send you a link to edit that application so you don't have to go through and fill in all the information again. You can just make minor changes if you ask for that link. The other link I've put there is a link to a report from the MCEC group that has been one of the big national push, one of the groups nationally that's really pushed for Purple Star Schools. They've kind of got a report that goes through the details of what the best practices are for Purple Star Schools and kind of gives you an idea of what will be expected. We use this as a resource a lot, or have in the past, as we look to see if applications meet the criteria that's expected. So that kind of goes through the different requirements to be a Purple Star School, and we've adopted those standard requirements in our rule here in Utah. Utah has adopted the standard requirements. If you want to see where the requirements are, they're found in our board administrative rule. R277929. This is where we set up our State Council on Military Children as well. But you can just kind of see that this kind of goes through the requirements. If you compare that to our application, that's where we get most of the questions in the application from, is just what's expected in that rule right there. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. And if you have questions about what's expected, that's where it comes from. But the first requirement is that you have a website for your military families so that they can see what resources are available to them. So I've kind of given you a few links here that are good examples of how different schools have done this. Hillfield Elementary is kind of representative of how most of the Davis schools have done their web page. And then I've given you a few other things. I'll show you a great example of a school. The way they've done this would be the Leadership Learning Academy charter school. You can see that they've highlighted some of the activities they've had for military families. They give you their military points of contact there. They have the contacts for the Hill Air Force Base School Liaison Office. And then they kind of show you what they're doing with their military families. And finally, they have resources that military families may want to look to. They have, in addition to the School Liaison Office, they have different national organizations. They have our State Department of Education, the MIC3 Compact website, which we hope will be on all of your websites, and just a number of different resources that people can access. So it doesn't have to be exactly like they've done it, but that's one great example of a website that one school's doing. And there are a number of schools that have done this very well. So I've given you a few links there just as examples of what you can copy format wise, and it doesn't, so that's the first requirement. The requirement that we probably have scrutinized the most in the past is the requirement of a student-led transition program, because I think this is really the biggie when you look at what's expected of schools under this Purple Star Schools program, is this program here, We want a school, we want to see a program that's well established, and that is in fact student-led, and that is working with new students as they come in. I think most of the schools that have been successful at getting Purple Star school status have taken existing programs, such as their Hope Squad is one example of what a number of schools have used, but there are different programs that you can use. Student to Student, I think, is another program that's used quite frequently, but you can take an existing program that's working with your new students and kind of apply that to the situation pretty easily in most school circumstances. But we just are looking to make sure that the students are actively running this program or leading this program. You can certainly have adults working with the program, but they needs to be student-led. It needs to be established. We don't want to see what your plans are to start next school year. We're hoping that these are programs that are well established, and that's what we're going to be looking at. Beyond that, we just want to see the detail of what this program is doing with your new students. The next requirement is that you have professional development for your staff. We have a general course of action that we recommend for this, and then we're open to alternatives. But the way we recommend that you do this is that you have your military point of contact and administrator do the Compact 101 training that's offered by MIC3. So I'm showing you here the MIC3 webpage. This is the National Compact Organization for Military Students. They have membership from all 50 states, and they are out to protect the rights of military students. And they have what they call Compact 101 training. You can see, and you can register for that. They offer it once a month. They also have resources where you can take it in Spanish and ASL, some other different languages too. But our recommendation is that you have a couple administrators from your school take this Compact 101 training. I believe it takes usually about an hour over Zoom, and that then you pass along the main points of that training to your staff in a faculty meeting or professional development day, so that they can be familiar with the different rights. Do you need to take Compact 101 training every year? Is a question in the chat. Answer to that is no. However, I would recommend that you brief your staff, kind of do a refresher for your staff every year. I know that in Davis they have their military team there has a prepared training that they're doing for staffs as well, and so that can be a satisfactory alternative. Although we do recommend the administrators still do the Compact 101 training in addition, but that's a good alternative as well if you're in Davis district. The final element that is set forth in rule is that each school has to meet one of three options. So there's kind of a category where you can pick one and use any one of those for meeting the requirements of the Purple Star Schools program. So the one that most schools have used is the military recognition event. We have a number of schools that have used either a Veterans Day assembly or a 9/11 assembly to meet that requirement. Number of schools use the Purple Star, the Purple Up in April, the Military Family Month, to meet that requirement, where they'll do different recognitions or assemblies. So any of those can meet that military recognition event. We encourage you to tell us what you've done in the past. If you have pictures that you can send along, you can upload pictures through the Qualtrics platform, or you can email them to me if you have any trouble uploading through our application platform. But we do. That's what most schools have done as far as the primary option. I know that a number of schools now have passed resolutions honoring military families, so that's the second option that you can use. You'll simply need to upload that resolution through the platform. While you can use that as your sole option, I encourage you to combine that with either the military recognition event or the service opportunities. And then the service opportunities is one that we've had a little confusion about in the past. I'll just show you the language on this so that you can see what the rule requires on that if you go that route. The requirement is that the school shall partner with a school liaison officer to provide opportunities for active duty parents to volunteer in the school. And so in the past, we've gotten applications where there's been no coordination with the school liaison officer, whether that be at Hill Air Force Base or Dugway, that have tried to pass that off as meeting that requirement. But the expectation is that you work with one of the appointed, the approved school liaison officers and set up some volunteer opportunities for parents in your school. Matt Mason is on the call. He's the school liaison officer at Hill. I'm not sure if I don't think our school liaison officer from Dugway is here today, but he'd be able to help you with this as well if you're out in the Tooele area and more geared towards Dugway. But that's the requirement for the volunteer opportunities. I will say that this is the first year that we have the Purple Star school status in our rule has up until now been a 3-year recognition. So this is the first year that we're taking renewals. I've gotten some feedback from some schools that it might be helpful to do away with that every 3-year process and maybe do just kind of an annual report to make sure you're up to date with the requirements. And that's something that I'm going to pursue in conjunction with our stakeholders on that, but that's something I've got to get the board to approve going forward. So if you have had the distinction for 3 years, we are expecting renewal applications this year, but we'll work on that requirement going forward. So that's just something to highlight for you to know. So that's kind of a quick and dirty overview of the requirements. What are your questions about the program? Is there anything that I haven't covered that I can answer for you or that is burning on your minds?
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
Hey, Colonel Taha. Can we just make that a requirement across the board, not just for the renewals, but just in general, that requirement for some sort of annual report that, that way we kind of have, I know we talked a little bit about it. It's going to take a rules change, but I really do think that's a way that we can make that process easier. So like you said, we don't have to do the 3-year renewal. As long as you're documenting what you're doing, we can, you kind of get to, play again next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And that's definitely something that I'm going to work on to bring that rule back and to make that modification. The applications are going to be due. I'm trying to remember the specific date we put on it. I think it's March 29th. It's basically the last day of the week in March. Last weekday in March is when the applications will be due, and then we'll review them when we have our state council meeting in April to give the final word to the applicants. So we have a committee that's going to help us go through the applications this year. What we will do is we will go through them and discuss them, and we're talking about doing a date to review the ones we've received so far next week if we can do it, and then we'll review all of them after the end of the submission period. So, but we have a committee that'll help us go through that, and we can invite people to make changes if we get the applications early on.
When you say we have a committee, is it this committee here that's on the phone, or do you have a separate committee?
No, this meeting is for schools that are interested in hearing about the program requirements. But the committee would be the group we had that met about a month ago up at the museum. Would be the group we're planning on having review the applications.
That was what Matt was telling me. Sorry. Okay, gotcha.
Well, we appreciate everybody joining us. Like I say, I have been recording this, and I will put this up on our website for schools that weren't able to attend today. And we hope to see your applications if we haven't seen them yet. Feel free to let us know if you have questions.